following presentation is an Delmarva Studios production.
Welcome back, Truth Seekers, to another edition of the Flat Earth Files. I'm your host, as always, George. Hope everybody had a nice weekend. Look, it's already hump day, Wednesday afternoon, and we had a great interview with one of our listeners. And if you'd like to join us, we've got several interviews lined up for the next couple of weeks. If you'd like to get on the schedule and join us like Brian did today, please reach out to us at theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. Again, that is theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. We had a really good conversation with Brian. Went about an hour and 20 minutes. I think you will enjoy it. And by the way, if you want to reach out to Brian and ask him more questions, he gave us his Instagram to his conspiracy page. So you can reach out, you can message him and chat with him. He's in the Denver, Colorado area. So really good conversation, and I think you will enjoy it. Without any further ado, here's the interview that we had earlier today. All right, welcome everybody to another edition of the Flat Earth Files. As we record, it's February 8th, this Wednesday, beautiful day here in the Mid-Atlantic region. It's shortly after noon Eastern time, and we have the pleasure to be joined by another one of our listeners who reached out and wanted to join the program, talk a little bit about his journey to the truth, and then we'll talk, obviously, thoughts on the flat earth, which, again, we've seen a boom in the last 10 years. And I'm very happy that I decided to do this podcast because it's really taken off, and it leads me to believe that there are a lot more like-minded people out there. And this is a great community. And Brian is one of the folks, again, who's reached out to us. And Brian, thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for having me, George. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much. And again, by the way, folks, by the end of this conversation, if you resonate with Brian, you want to reach out to him, we're going to post his Instagram account in the show description, so you can click on that link and you can link up with him and have a conversation. Brian is in the Colorado area, so if that's something, I think it's great. We are at a time, you can call it a great awakening, where it's good to know that there's like-minded people in your area, and community is a great place. And so there we go, Brian. Let's start. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, yeah. Hey, just to circle back on what you just said about my Instagram account, just for the record, this is not my personal Instagram account. This is my Conspiracy World pseudonym account. I own my own real estate brokerage here in Colorado. So unfortunately, Flat Earth isn't as mainstream hot topic as I would love it to be to market to truth-minded people. So yes, it is my pseudonym account that I would love to speak with anyone who happens to want to reach out. My name is Brian. I am 33 years old. Like I said, I have a business here. I had just had my third child. I have 2 girls and a boy, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 3-month-old baby. So sleep's been a little weird, I'll be honest with you, but I love it. It's the greatest joy in the world. I got into the conspiracy world stuff pretty early on, I would say. It's, it's a slow awakening. I'm a very naturally rebellious person. So I remember in elementary school, the science teacher telling me that the sun and the moon look like they're the same size, only from the human perspective. But in reality, one is 400 times closer and the other one's 400 times larger and farther away. And I just remember things not sitting well with me about that. Like, I look at them every day outside. I love playing outside, and I feel like they're different. I just had big trust issues with a lot of authority figures, I would say. So I questioned everything from an early age. And I think in high school was the first time, it was like my economics teacher or something like that. It was towards the end of the year, and he wanted to play his, I forget what the documentary is called, but it was one of the early documentaries around the moon landing. And just presenting both sides, and that's where they talked about, the shadows not lining up, different light sources, basically proving that it was in a studio, and all sorts of other things. And that was the first time that I kind of resonated with something, that I kind of kind of dove into it, put my foot down. I'm like, hey guys, my friends at the lunch table, let's talk about what we watched yesterday. And, most of my friends weren't into it. They didn't want to. Of course, we landed on the moon. Don't think about it. Go back to, watching Star Wars. But I vividly remember a few moments throughout my childhood that stuck with me that would foreshadow the coming truth-seeking personality that I had later. In 2008, so I think Zeitgeist, the movie, came out in 2007,
Yep.
and about a year into that, I had a really interesting character who was my mentor in Dallas, Texas, where I grew up. His name was Ari. He is a billionaire, to put it shortly. If you go to his Facebook page, and I'm happy to link it to anyone who's interested, he has lots of pictures with the Bush family and things like that. Very, very, very wealthy family, tied into, a lot of celebrity figures, really. He told me to my face that he had spent time with the Bush family and some creepy things around that, but he's the one that told me that I need to go watch Zeitgeist. And I looked up to him immensely. So of course I did, and I ate up every word of it. Years now, looking back, I don't agree with 100% of everything that's in Zeitgeist, obviously, because there's, a globe heliocentric model and all that, but still a lot of truth around the precession of the equinox and good esoteric knowledge to use as, tools to move you forward. You just have to take it with a grain of salt. But a lot of it still really did hit the spot, and it kind of opened up my my distrust for the authority, and just a deeper craving to find out what's being hidden. There's definitely information being hidden, and my natural curiosity wanted to see what was on the other side.
Was your biggest takeaway from Zeitgeist? Had you been privy to the 9/11 truth prior to watching Zeitgeist?
That was new to me. The Jesus solar Messiah stuff was brand new to me, and the debt, the way the money works, the financial institutions. That was all new to me at that time when I was maybe 18 years old.
So, wow, you got two things that really blow me away that you've already said here in the first 5 minutes. Number one, you actually, when you were in junior high or high school, you actually had a teacher show you a documentary that questioned the official narrative. That blows my mind.
It blew my mind too. I'm still looking back on it, so grateful that I had that opportunity, because that seems to be rare. I went to Highland Park High School in Dallas, Texas, is where that took place. It's one of the wealthiest high schools. That's where George Bush went to retire after his presidency.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of big-name football players go to high school there as well.
I went to high school with Matthew Stafford, who won the Super Bowl the other year.
There you go.
I knew him, yeah.
Yeah, I lived in Texas for about 10 years. I was more in the Temple, Texas, between
cool.
Waco and Austin, right in the middle there.
Nice.
Yeah. So what was the other question I had? So, by the way, congratulations. How old is your littlest?
It's like 3 months. 3 months yesterday.
Oh, my gosh. That's amazing. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Little boy, finally.
That's awesome. Let me ask you this. Is your wife awake as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she's my extension. She's my other part of my body. So yeah, we're very much together on the same page, and that was an interesting couple of months so how I got into flat earth, let's circle there.
Yeah, sure.
Obviously I was into the conspiracy world stuff. My brother he's a published author. How do I say this? He has 2 doctorates. One is philosophy of religion, the other is IO psychology. And he has his religion side. He dedicated a lot of time and passion to be anti-Christian, essentially. Like, he puts a lot of energy into saying this is the reason why the Bible's stupid, and he just has a very negative perspective about everything. I will agree that the Bible's not perfect, but I will also agree that there is so much powerful beauty in the Bible that you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's if you try to take everything literally, you're going to not make sense of it. But when you look at it from an allegorical perspective, man, these are some of the most beautiful truths that is able to be put into words. So I disagree with him completely, but he had a lot of, he's 4 years older than I am. So he had a lot of influence on me growing up, guiding my spiritual awareness. And he made sure that I'd be an atheist like him. And of course, about age 17, I was super into, all the sci-fi channels, the Nova, the Universe, the Carl Sagan Cosmos, anything Neil deGrasse Tyson. I loved that guy.
Evolution, dinosaurs, Big
exactly.
Bang Theory.
Yeah. I was super into dinosaurs as a young kid. So comical looking back on now. But yeah, in college, I would refuel this atheistic world perspective, and it would just lead to degeneracy. Like I fueled my poor personality, my poor character by reinforcing all of these things. I would like smoke weed and drink and just contemplate how everything means nothing and it doesn't matter what you do and God isn't real. And it's just an incredibly negative way to live. But it seems like that's kind of the hypnotic rhythm of the direction that the system wants to take your mind, and that level of mind control, you know. So very much was an atheist, like you can say. I wouldn't think I was an atheist. I think I just didn't believe in the biblical God because that's all I knew. So he put holes in that story. And he wrote a book, it's on Amazon, called Through the Eyes of an Atheist, where there's a whole chapter about me coming out to my family about how I'm an atheist, and he fluffed it up to prove his point. But in reality, I was just in a dark spot looking up to my older brother as my masculine archetype figure of what to be like. And I eventually got into some new age stuff in college, and I was very exploratory with things like DMT, LSD, smoking marijuana, things like that really connected me in a sense of I don't, everything's magic. How am I in this body? How am I able to move my hands like this? And started contemplating reality in a different way, which I don't advocate doing that. I mean, if you have the personality that pulls you to seek things, you might do it. But once you get the message, hang up the phone, like Alan Watts says, get out of that as soon as you can, because there's a beneficial perspective, but it's definitely a trap, I will say. But anyway, I got into some new age stuff and had a few years of an atheist phase, but really latched on to finally having some kind of spirituality that I could hold on to, because I wanted to believe in God. I wanted to believe in good things. I wanted to have this like higher awareness that I can use as a tool to live a better life. So I was all about it, man. I was all about it, getting into astrology and tarot and, Wicca and anything with that label. And it wasn't until 2015, I would say, I was watching YouTube videos, and man, 2015 was a great year for YouTube because it wasn't nearly as censored. And the algorithm started recommending all these flat earth videos, and I vividly remember where I was at my desk at that time and like, yeah, right, I'm not going to look at that. That's crazy. There's no way I'm going to look at that. And then after a couple weeks go by, I'm like, damn, this one has like, hundreds of thousands of views and a lot of, very few thumbs down, a lot of thumbs up. I think it's funny they took away the thumbs down thing. They're all hiding their way you can judge it. But anyway, I finally watched it and I hated it. I was like, this is stupid. It was an Eric Dubay video.
Okay.
And I remember that his voice made me feel icky. I was like, who is this liar? Who is this guy? And then it just planted a seed. And then I'd start waking up early in the morning. It'd be my first thought, is the earth flat? And then I have dreams about it, like seeing it differently. I watched this documentary about waterfalls all over the world. And as I'm watching this, I'm like, oh my gosh, water's always going down. There is no curve. I would say November 2015 was when I first started contemplating the idea. I didn't mention it to my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. I didn't even mention it to her until January. So a good 3 months, I kind of drove myself crazy, really, really researching this before I mentioned it to my wife or my older brother. I'll never forget how long it took me to say it too, because it's like, I have to talk to you about something. And then we talk in circle for 20, 30 minutes. And I finally, dropped the ball, let the cat out of the bag.
Right.
And my wife was not about it. Of course, we're so indoctrinated. We're so programmed to just think it's ridiculous right off the bat. So anytime you talk about this with anyone, don't say flat earth, say stationary realm, say, what does Elon Musk call it? Not the system, the simulation.
There you
simulation.
Go. Yeah, the simulation.
Exactly. Like there's so many other ways to describe it without saying the words flat earth. But yeah, we're very much, being lied to in a lot of ways. And it's been an interesting discovery.
That's really interesting. We have a guest coming on in the end of the month, I think the 27th, who specifically is going to talk about, he's come up with a system how you can, talk to others about flat earth without the stigma. He's I guess, spend a line perfecting this way to present it to people where it's not, like you're coming out of the closet. So I'll be very much looking forward to that.
Oh, I am tired of coming out of the closet, George. I have done it a few times to no of the only person that it really worked with is my wife, and because we took the time, we're together to rewatch everything, to study, to ask questions. And then I had a few friends and my brother, who I would say got into it, but they didn't get passionate about it. Several people have this defense up of like, well, it's not going to change my life. Like, what's the point of learning about it? It doesn't change anything. I'm like, you mean your foundational worldview doesn't change anything about your life? What are you talking about? It changes everything about your life.
And that's the question I get a lot. Why does it matter? It means everything. That's a direct reflection of, if you ask somebody, what's man's greatest accomplishment? Well, they went to the moon. Well, if that didn't happen, then that means by default, they've pretty much lied about everything. That's a big deal.
It's a big deal. Yeah, totally.
And there's, 20 or 30 rivers all around the world that flow north? How can that be possible on a globe? It makes no sense.
No sense. Yeah, I'm with you. No sense. But that's awesome. So the 27th, that guy's coming on.
Yes.
I'd be curious to hear what he has to say because you know me, I'm pushing limits, man. I became a Mason in order to really kind of get off all the pointing fingers, and every video out there is like saying, oh, it's just the Masons and that's all you need to know. Just blame the Masons. And I just had issues with that because it's like saying, blame the military. Oh, that's the military's fault. Like, that's a massive organization that you're giving credit for for just the higher echelon of that, pentagram or that pyramid.
Yeah, I've had conversations with people who are a heck of a lot smarter than I am, and they say there's about 8,000 people who truly control the world, and that's, when you talk about
tops
8 billion, that is minuscule.
Right.
And even people say, the Freemasons. Most of the people are, first, second, third degree. They're out doing fundraisers and things like that. Now, obviously, you get to the 32nd and 33. There are people, and going back to your friend who was a billionaire down in Texas, he obviously knew things that the average guy didn't, especially if he was friends with George Bush. He knew there was no yellow cake. There were no weapons of mass destruction. We went in there for oil. And also all of the historical stuff. There's a lot of people, including, I think, Eric Dubé and the guy who's coming on my show Sunday, Josh from the Founded Earth Brothers. They believe they went there and they got Nimrod's DNA and just all kinds of stuff. There's so much historical stuff in Iraq.
It's so fun. Yeah, super cool.
So where are you at today in your are you a flat earther? And have you tried to share the information with your family? And also a thing, it's kind of off the beaten trail a little bit, but obviously with you being a truther, how did you handle March 2020 through today?
Okay, that's a lot there. Circle back. What was the first question that I can start with?
Where are you at today as a flat earther, and do you try to communicate your thoughts with family members, etc.?
For sure. I think I've stopped with my family members. My sister was in college at the time when I opened up to her a few years back, and that was just not good. It wasn't going to go well. She's not a natural truther on her own, so it's like, you need to research the moon landing or something before I force anything down your throat. But I did mention it to her because I'm pretty confident in my ways and I have conviction here because I've put in the time and I've researched both sides for honestly years. So my mom knows, my stepdad knows, my dad passed away long before I was into this. But I dream about drilling him on it all because that would have been fun. I'm highly aware that everyone is a flat earther. Just nobody knows it. The reason I am linked up with you now is because my buddy Sean, he and I were in this online men's group with this public figure who started his own men's group in the masculinity world. And I was annoyed with a lot of them talking about their love for NASA, and they're sharing recordings of what the sun sounds like from NASA. And it's just this like,
oh my goodness.
Like crazy electric stuff. Like, isn't it so fascinating? And I was just talking smack, and then someone made fun of flat earthers with a meme, and I'm like, I'm just going to come out because I don't need to be mixing with these dudes if I can't be my authentic self. I'm clearly on a next level. I want to find dudes who are on a next level. I don't want to play shallow. I'm too old for that. So I came out. I came out of the closet in a public forum to 50 something dudes, and right away, Sean is a badass. I mean, I think that dude was like Mr. Olympia Mr. Georgia in his bodybuilding world competition. He's a killer, awesome dude, and he's known as like the enforcer in this group. If anyone's eating ice cream or something, he's going to come down on them like a hammer and keep them in line, kind of thing. And just nobody wants to go against Sean. And as soon as I sent that message, it was early in the morning, and I'm just like, I know I'm about to quit this group. I know that there's no more value here for me, but I'm gonna go out with a bang and throw a flag up where I can, because I am passionate about it. Right away, Sean calls me. Like within 2 minutes, I was like, my phone's ringing. It's 8:30. What's going on? Sean Lay. Oh my gosh. I'm about to get lectured. I'm about to get my butt handed to me. And I talked to him, and he's like, yeah, man, I got into this a few years ago. It's super cool you shared. I'm like, oh my gosh. And he was the only one. There were several dudes that were interested and on the fence, but he was the only guy that was full on, like, completely invested and has come to the conclusion, like, yes, this is undeniable at this point. So he and I bonded quite a bit over it, and needless to say, yes, I did butt heads with that public figure who runs the group, and I stood my ground. I'm proud of myself for doing so. It's one of those don't meet your heroes kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, I'm just happy to outgrow it. But yeah, Sean and I remain friends to this day.
So
he's the one that told me to get on your
group.
Oh yeah, I'm a Freemason. I have the men's group. Every other men's group out there is trying to be this weaker version of something that's already withstood the test of time, something that already has foundational, strong values. This men's group that Sean and I were in has no values. The leader proudly proclaims to be a degenerate on a daily basis. So I'm not looking up to you. I've learned a lot recently in my spiritual quest that spirituality is not just knowledge of esoteric things. It's actually living a pure life. That is huge to me. It's living with the highest integrity possible, staying away from pornography and all the things that are out there designed to scoop in your mind and poison your soul. That's all, like, infinite pornography on the internet at a touch of a button. It just blows your mind that this is so available and so out there to trap men, and 99% of men out there are heavily struggling with it. I'm the generation that grew up with it first, with just abundance of it, so I'm passionately against it, because it really it poisons the soul, and it'll poison every aspect of every decision you make, and it's just wild when you start thinking about that. And that's just one example of living a degenerate life. So where I am now is just to contemplate the spiritual warfare that is this world. I believe I can't say that I'm exclusively Christian, but I grew up Christian, and I have a deep, deep love for Christianity because of its morality, because there's not a lot of moral teachings in this world right now. But I very much view this simulation, or the Earth realm, or the Earth system, whatever you want to call it, as a battery, as a battery, that has the anode and the cathode between the sun and the moon. And
there you go.
The sun is giving off this masculine life force, and the moon is receiving it and taking it in, and the moon is obviously we know it's the feminine receptive, and it's the magnet, like the Mary Magdalene I think there's some connection there. Also, I think there's connection with Catholic and the cathode, but that's a different conversation for a different day. And I view this realm as both heaven and hell. Like purgatory, you can call it that. I wrote a song recently that says heaven and hell share one dimension, and it's right before our eyes. And I kind of feel like that the rapture is happening constantly, because the moon is constantly sucking up the light and the spirits, and the sun is constantly refreshing it every day. And, it's just this crazy land of infinity that we live in. You can focus on anything to infinity. So it's like, choose wisely what you consume, into your mind. Yeah, it's a wild ride, man.
Yeah, and
it's hard talking about.
The flat Earth itself, where we know that it's Antarctica surrounds us, and we're just in a big lake, and
right.
How you explain the sun and the moon, that's so beautiful, and it makes so much sense. And it's very sad how whether you call them the hidden hand, the controllers,
the powers that be, how they have taken everything and just made a complete lie about it, which we'll get to the COVID thing later, but let's stick with this. You have young children. What are your plans for education? Homeschool.
That's awesome. It's
another reason why we're moving to Florida, is because it's one of the best homeschool states. My mom happens to live there half the year, but we did a big spreadsheet of like income tax, property tax, homeschool laws, vaccine laws, all sorts of stuff. And Florida was by far the number one on our choice, and I have family there. So the family there was just a bonus after we made the logical decision of this is where we want to raise our family. And it has affordable land where I can, buy 5 acres and start a small homestead for my children to inherit.
Yeah, we've already run out of room here.
Oh, in Delaware?
Yeah. I mean, we've got, a little over an acre and a half. And once,
Nice.
with the chickens and everything, the well, you can't really put things over the well in the septic. We want goats, we want cows, that type of thing. You'll be surprised how quickly the land grows. But we homeschool. When I was talking to Josh from the Founded Earth Brothers, who will be joining us Sunday, we share a passion. It's very hard to find a faith-based curriculum that isn't inundated in scientism.
Right.
So we were talking. I was like, I wish I could put a project together and come up with an online curriculum for folks that had math, but taught basic science, right? But not the scientism, not the man on the moon stuff, not evolution. And it kills me that all these quote unquote Christian, folks that put these curriculum together, they continue to preach all the lies, and they put that in their school system. So I have to pick and choose every day what my daughter goes into. And then when they get into the moon landings and all this stuff, we pull that out and we sit down, we show her videos. My daughter has watched more David Weiss videos than I bet you.
I like that guy.
Yeah, I've had him on twice. He's a very nice man. And
Go
ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to ask how old your children are.
I have my oldest turned 34 yesterday. My youngest just turned 13 last month.
Nice. Happy late birthday to your oldest.
Thanks. But we have one left at home. She's 13. And so what happened was we moved from Texas to Delaware literally a month before the COVID thing kicked off, February of 2020.
Wow. Okay.
So we enrolled her we lived next to the Dover Air Force Base. We enrolled her in that school. And then they started the Zoom thing, and I sat next to her, and we started seeing all the things that they were teaching in public school. And after 2 days, I was on the phone with the state looking at the homeschool laws. I said, that's it. What in the world have we been doing to our children, sending them off to these indoctrination camps?
Good for you. Exactly what it is, indoctrination camps.
Yeah, they say, they teach them how to memorize things and regurgitate it. Mm-hmm. They don't teach critical thinking whatsoever. Multiple choice.
They teach obedience.
Yes, it is. The bell rings, they get up, go to the next class. The bell rings, they sit down.
Exactly. Sit down, shut up. Yep, totally.
Yeah, it really is. And I thought I was awake. I was, when 9/11 happened, I was stationed in Hawaii at Schofield Barracks.
Oh wow!
And I had been a engineer. I had worked with demolitions, C4, det cord, Bangalore torpedoes, and we knew how these type of things worked. And when I watched the buildings fall that day, we knew that something was not right. We obviously didn't know. In the military, you're very busy, and we'd be back and forth to Iraq several times, so you don't really have the time to really think and research these things. But after I retired and you start looking into the truths, that was the second biggest punch to the gut, was 9/11 to me, because I'd lost friends over there, both in Afghanistan and Iraq, and all of it was based on lies. But I'll tell you, I'm here to tell you that when I really sat down and gave Flat Earth a chance, David Weiss sent me that email, and I initially deleted it.
It was David. I was curious who it was. You mentioned it before, didn't mention who it was in the Flat Earth world. I was wondering if it was David Weiss. Good for him, man.
What is this
He
stuff?
Continues to do good in the world, right?
He really does.
What is the stuff?
And I went back, I took it out of the trash, in the trash bin in your email, because I felt bad. At least was going to come up with something. I'll try to get you on the schedule. And he just had a link in there. I clicked on it, and man, after the first video, I was like, wait a second, that makes a little bit of sense. And then I'm telling you, I didn't sleep for 2 weeks. I was pacing around my house. I was walking for miles, and I was almost in tears. I was like, my whole life has been a lie.
How old were you when you?
Oh my God! I mean, I've been awake for many years, but I wasn't awake to Flat Earth until, 4 years ago.
Wow. Well, good for you making the change, because my mom says all the time, she's like, Brian, my ship's been going this way so long, I can't turn my ship anymore. And I'm like, well, listen to George because you can if you want to get a clue.
Yeah, listen, I've had people in their 70s and 80s email me, and that there is no time like the present. And I will say this. I think the older you get, the harder it is to wake somebody up, because that's just the longer they've been in the indoctrination circle.
Right.
But one thing, if we want to kind of just for a little bit kind of slide into the COVID narrative, I think
let's talk about
they did overplay their hand a little bit, and that kind of caused a bit of an awakening to people.
It has to have, right? It's been huge. It's like such common knowledge. I feel like the majority of people are against it, you know, because all they did was research what's going on and when they were locked at home, and it's kind of hard to keep believing the untruths.
Yeah, for sure. So how did you handle that whole thing?
Man, so let's circle back. So March, was it even March? January, I was in California and I was coming home, and all these people were wearing masks on my plane. Like this really, really big, unhealthy lady sat right next to me, and she's coughing and acting all sick, and she's wearing a mask. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, why are you next to me? If you're like, what's going on? I hadn't even heard the word COVID, any of that yet. But I saw masks pick up at the airport. And I come home and I'm hearing more and more news about it. And right away they're saying this many people died, so and so many people died. And it's from this like influenza type virus. I don't think they said COVID early on, but anyway, I was just projecting the numbers with my wife. I was like, babe, like 300-something thousand people die every day. Like, what are you talking about that like 2,000 people died and like it's a big deal? Like, sorry, I have a big vision. Like I've looked at birth rates and death rates on a daily scale before, and I know it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people every day, literally thousands of people every minute, you know? So I was having a hard time buying it. Obviously I had enough distrust in everything that I see on a television screen, because it's all to program you in everything. So I was immediately not into it. But not only that, I didn't know this was coming, but years before, I did hear of a vaccine agenda. And I did research a little bit of a vaccine agenda, and Bill Gates was involved in it. And he was sharing some, you might have seen it now because it went pretty viral in the COVID, exposing stuff, where he's like, briefing the CIA on this small little stage about, what they're going to do with these upcoming vaccines and how it's going, it's called the fun vax, right? Because it's aimed at fundamentalists. So people who are too extreme on their beliefs need to get this kind of vaccine to numb a certain portion of their brain to make them more docile in this area. That was the whole synopsis of the thing. I think it came out in 2005 or 2015. I remember a 5 in there. I don't know. It's been a while. But I saw that before I ever saw Bill Gates talking on the screen about these coming vaccines. So right away I was like, oh my gosh, this is the vaccine agenda unfolding before my eyes. So never bought into it. I also was familiar with, and it's funny how Google changed it. When you look at it early on, you can say, what does ovid mean? The word ovid in Latin means sheep. But you look at it now and you type in what the definition of ovid, and the first 10 articles are like, ovid does not mean sheep, and this does not do, you know how the fact checkers work. Yep. It's just comical to me. But yeah, that changed in a couple years. I've never been about it, and I talked in my family to not get their vaccines. I was obviously normally vaccinated as young babies are. My children are not. I did start my firstborn, and she got a big fever after one of them, and they basically said, good luck, she was like 104 degrees fever at 6 months old. So we were obviously very concerned, and then we got really into this, the anti-vax world on a different level, not just because of COVID, but I will say the COVID one really brought my eyes to it around the time it was becoming required for my children. I delivered all my babies myself. One was in a birth center in the water. The other 2 were at home. That's
amazing. That's my son and his wife. They use the birthing centers, and
nice.
I think they did the ones in the bathtub. And
water birth. Yes, that's the way, man.
And they were home.
My firstborn didn't even cry.
Yep,
exactly. I took my firstborn home 4 hours after delivering her, and my other ones were born at home. It's driving in labor is the worst, so I highly recommend it to anyone. You can reach out to me about that. My wife is passionate about the home birth.
Yeah, as well as my son and daughter-in-law, and
very cool.
I'm telling you, my 2 grandchildren, those 2 are amazing. You can tell they're, man. I don't know how to. I got to tread carefully here, but I think you can tell with children today, with this crazy vaccine schedule. Children who are born naturally and don't have all these vaccines pumped into them, they're outgoing, they're not shy, they're full of energy.
You're 100% right.
Yeah, and I'm not here because look, all of us, I was in the military. I've probably gotten 4,000 vaccines. I'll be happy if I make it to 65. My dad stood his ground. He never told me, but when we both went to Desert Storm. When he was on his way, he refused to take it. They almost ended his military career, but he was in such. He was NBC NCO, which is nuclear, biological, chemical. He was like the only guy, so it was like valuable, a very important job. So they ended up folding and. He passed now, so I guess I could say, they back then the records were handwritten, so somebody probably just signed off that he got it. But, it's very evil, and listen, mankind has flourished for thousands of years without, vaccines. Right. I don't like to overall bash the medical industry because I have had friends get blown up with IEDs, and when we first saw them, we thought there's no chance of them living. And, after the surgery and all of, through modern medicine, it's a miracle they're walking and you can't even barely recognize that anything extreme has happened to them. And I know people probably who have family in car accidents and have been in serious condition. God's hands are doing wonderful work. However, when we start to talk about, this is just my opinion, I'm not pushing this, but I think chemotherapy and the modern day pharmaceutical industry, which, by the way, before we went live, Brian and I were talking about, Brian's obviously thinking of moving to Florida. We have expats, friends who live in Ecuador, Panama, because they've really lost their faith. When people come home, they're just blown away by what's on TV. We're only one of 2 countries in the world that are allowed to have pharmaceutical commercials on TV. So when they come home, they're like, what's all this stuff on TV? They'd say, if you take this, your hair will grow back, but there's a chance you could die of a stroke or heart attack. What the heck is going on?
Right? Yeah.
It's
crazy. Vanity trading and all the, just treating symptoms with another pill and making as much money as you can without addressing the root issues.
It is, and that's on my other podcast last night. We talked about Jennifer Pritzker and this big transgender push that has become a huge money making scheme in the medical industrial complex. Oh my goodness!
How are they making money on it? I know it's a scheme and there's a huge agenda, but just for the hormones alone, yeah, totally.
All this, and then I guess the average cost for a full transition is $1.2 million.
That makes me sick.
Yep. And now all these states are signing off to fund to foot the bill.
Yeah, get me out of Colorado because they're going to be one of the first ones to sign it.
Oh, sure, yeah. Illinois and Colorado, New York, yeah.
Yeah. Yikes, man. Oh, I wasn't even thinking about the money side of that thing other than just the perversion of it all. Everything that, like there's this, in the truther world, at least in my perspective, there's a big, you can say satanic, that's satanic agenda and this and that. And I don't necessarily, believe in the archetype of this little red man, Satan. Obviously the energy is there. There is a satanic agenda. But I think that anything satanic is just perverting nature. Any perversion of nature can be argued that it's satanic. It's against God. And that's as most drastic as it can get. I've heard Joe Rogan and a few other people talk about how at every fall of civilization, like the Roman Empire and dates back, there's always this documented increase in transgenderism before everything goes to shit and it falls. The system collapses essentially.
I mean, all the way back to Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right? But it's hard to I don't know. It's been this bad for so long. It's hard to. I don't know, I want to believe in a big change coming, but at the same time, it's this has been going on a long time,
Yeah, and
heaven and hell share one dimension. That's my perspective.
Yeah, the late 1900s to the until before 1933, when the Bolshevik Revolution in Weimar Germany, it was very much debauchery was running wild, and it's kind of what we're experiencing today is the exact same thing. They're promoting this terrible stuff, and you look in Revelations, it talks about in the end times what is good will be looked upon as bad, and what's bad will be looked upon as good. You can go to any porn website, nothing ever comes up, no block, nothing. You go to Many Truthers website, you get a warning.
Oh yeah, right.
And it's
right. You go to Wikipedia, anything. Yeah, right. That's crazy.
It's insane. Somebody said, "Hey, check out my buddy's website," and like I had to go through 4 warnings, and then he's just talking about random stuff and has some things on God there. He's mostly Christian, and some truth or stuff in there. And I don't know if you heard an episode or 2 ago I played. There was an episode or a little interview on CNN. The guy was interviewing this lady who had written a book, and they were calling flat earthers extremists. Extremists.
Yeah, well, we're extremely different, but yeah, I think we're all just trying to we're not confident enough or stupid enough to go out and try to change the world in that way. I mean, at least for me, this was a tool for me to understand reality better. Since I became a flat earther, George, my entire life changed.
Yes.
I went from making $20,000 a year to making about 100. 2021, I had my best year ever. I made $235,000. And that year was a fluke. I will say normally it's about half that, but all that had to do with kind of satisfying this inner knowing of truth in my soul to where I could stop wasting time and I could focus on my purpose. My purpose is to protect and provide my family. That's all it comes down to. Something you were saying earlier made me think of this old video I saw of this. Maybe I thought of it when I was talking about the satanic stuff. It was an ex-satanic high priest. I think this video is from the 80s. And he would go travel around churches, and I think he was an ex-pro wrestler. God, I'm blanking on his name. I'll have to
Jesse Ventura?
Send it to you. No, he's pretty famous. Was he also a satanic priest?
Oh, you said satanic priest. I'm sorry. I thought
he was a pro wrestler, but so he was a satanic priest that had some experiences within that realm that brought him back to God, and now he's all about the Jesus train and travels on churches, and he has this huge following. And I really, really enjoyed his hour lecture, because sharing some really esoteric stuff. But not only that, he told me that when he was highest up at his church, not told me, told everyone in this video, when he was in his upper echelon of the realm of Satan, he had connections in Hollywood, and he was a part of this discussion that the next step for Hollywood is to make evil cute. That's their goal, is they're going to put out all the stuff that makes evil cute. And if you look at everything from the 90s on, man, it's like the Minions, for example, the little cute yellow guys that every child loves so much. Those little demons are meant to find the most evil person in the world to be their slave and to help them do evil accomplishments. That's what those guys are. It's the cutest little thing, but it's evil. Or the show Cruella DeVille, right. That whole movie of her side thing, is a lovable character that just makes you love evil. It's so cute. It's unfortunate. They're very good at what they do.
Absolutely. Everything
and
they
if you
do
look
is...
at MK Ultra...
Yes. Isn't it funny that
it's
MK
subtle.
Ultra ended just a few months after the manned moon missions ended?
Wink, 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 nudge, nudge. Yeah, right?
I think that guy you were trying to think of, was that Stephen Dollins?
Oh, man, I don't know.
He was an ex-high priest in the Church of Satan. Now he's saved by Christ, ordained prophet.
If you Googled it, that might be him. Steve, yeah, that might be him.
Former pro wrestler. And it's funny, he has a little thing here.
That's him.
Talks about Pride Month, and the word demon is in with Pride Month, DEMON. I never even realized that.
Really?
Pride Month.
That's funny.
Yeah.
God, Pride Month. You get a whole Pride Month. You get one Veterans Day or a Memorial Day for your
right.
service, but they get a Pride Month.
Well, it's funny. Hydas, or was it Hybris, the goddess of spirit? Wasn't her month in June too?
I don't know.
The Hybris, the goddess of reckless pride, she had something going on in June as well. All these things, Apollo, Artemis, all these things are related.
Yeah, it is. And that's another thing that I'd like to circle back on. I deeply resonated with astrology, but the heliocentric model would make it look so stupid. So I still kind of into it, studied it throughout college and all that. But once flat Earth became really common knowledge to myself, it really creates the luminaries to be much closer and much more affecting you than I realized. And they're named after the Greek gods, Jupiter and all that. Those are the gods of the old world right above us, and you can pay attention to them. I'm reading Manly P. Hall's. He's a 33rd degree Freemason, one of the few. His most famous book is called The Secret Teachings of All the Ages.
Yep.
I highly recommend it
yep.
for anyone who's just balls out, I'm going to take on whatever truth I can find in this world. I'm going to dive into it. Of course, read the Bible, read all the things, but man, I have gotten a lot of value out of this one. And the way he talks about the luminaries and things, it's cool.
Yeah, my top 2 books are that one and then Bill Cooper's Behold a Pale Horse.
Ooh, yeah, another classic.
Minus the UFO stuff. But
Right, I know, man. I used to be all about this alien stuff. I was all about it back in the day, and I realized like it doesn't have to really. They don't have to go away because there's just too much experience around them. You know, there's so many accounts for it. There's so many similar stories, and there's just something that kind of relates about this different being observation. But whenever I realized this is not an extraterrestrial humanoid, this is an interdimensional being. You know, whether it's an angel or a demon, like it's the same thing. You're just calling it something secular, and I'm calling it something like spiritual.
Right. And why do you think? Is it just because the powers that be have manipulated everything so well? And I've said you can watch any movie going back 50 years. There's going to be a globe somewhere in the movie.
For sure.
In random places. Why the stigma, even within the truth community? Because I've said before, this is one of the reasons I broke off to make a separate podcast, because even when I was hosting the radio show on Revolution Radio and Speak Free Radio, if I brought it up, you could see the listenership, everybody would leave and leave nasty comments in the chat room and just leave.
That's so crazy.
And,
and they're the open-minded people,
Yeah,
that's
these are
your
open-minded
audience.
people who understand 9/11, Kennedy, Waco, Oklahoma City. They won't have a conversation about flat Earth, but they'll have a conversation about UFOs and little green men and these type of things. And
right.
I just
think
don't
it's ego,
understand
man.
Why the stigma, especially within the truth community.
I think it's ego. Everyone wants to have the answers and offer the answers, and nobody wants to feel like they've been duped. And we've all been duped. We've been fooled. I was fooled just like everybody else. But you got to have that, I don't know, that personal integrity or just that respect for yourself of like, hey, man, we were all fooled, but let's at least look into it, because it's like Eric Dubay says it best. It's kind of the most easy to prove. Like when you look into this and realize that there's bridges out there for over 100 miles long, like the longest one in China is like 104 miles long, and it's supposed to have over 7,000 feet of curvature, a dip, and you're looking at this picture, man, there's no curvature. 7,000 feet? Like, and that's across the board on every example. Like, it's just not there.
At the Bedford level experiment, that's completely flat. You talk about the train tracks that are laid. And even though I wasn't really awake at the time, I was in a aviation unit, again in Hawaii, the 68th Medical Company Air Ambulance. We had UH-60s. And the technical manual specifically said to treat it as a flat, non-rotating Earth.
Right. I recently shared that, I think in that men's group that I told you about. I was like, look, guys, even NASA says flat Earth. You just Google that. The docs come right up. It's hilarious. Multiple times. Flat, non-rotating Earth, like you just said verbatim. And they were like, oh, now we believe everything NASA says? Oh, you're quoting NASA. You're contradicting yourself. I'm like, okay, I'm just proving inconsistencies in what you believe. I guess I just can't with certain people. It's like, let me get back to work. I got to make money for my family.
Absolutely. And the guy who jumped the Red Bull jump, whatever his name was.
Felix Baumgart or whatever, yeah.
The only thing that they came for, the ammunition for the Globers was, look, you can see the curve, which it's a GoPro with a fisheye lens.
Planet New Mexico. Yeah, the entire New Mexico is the whole circle.
Exactly. If the world was actually spinning all this time, he should have landed right in another state.
I kind of don't believe anything about that, because if you look more into that, just outside of the GoPro, fisheye lens curvature, the word zenith on there, if you look at different photos of it, it's in multiple different locations, the word zenith. One time it's like on this little hatch, another time it's a little lower, and it's from the same angle every time. So there's a lot of holes in that publicity stunt.
Oh, you think that whole thing was rigged as well? Like going to the moon?
Maybe. I'm not saying I know for sure, but for sure, if you Google that and look at the word zenith, look at the location of it, it's going to be in different locations, and you're like, well, that's freaking weird. Why? Yeah. Because it's printed
really
onto the metal, supposedly, right? Like, yeah, just check it out.
All right, let me write this down. More things to go down the rabbit hole in.
Not that we need to be like, oh, that proves that there's no curve. Like, no, it's just the whole thing's BS.
Yeah. Just like the Amazon guy and his flying phallus.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Anything they can do to reinforce it. And another thing, like with the people holding on to their nostalgic childhood dreams, like, man, I wasn't that into Star Wars as a kid, but I was into like Star Fox and playing the video games of flying around in space and all that. Like, that really imprinted my mind as a young developing mind. So it was hard. Like you said, you didn't sleep for weeks. My whole life's a lie. I was in and out of sleeps, and every morning I'd wake up, oh my God, it's flat. It was impactful. I was consumed by it. And I'm so happy that I did that when I did, because I wasn't married, I didn't have a business running, and I didn't have children. Because you bring it up all the time. It's hard. It's hard when you're busy. You're providing, you have a purpose, you want to just live your life as well, but I want to live the truest life I possibly can. So I have to research and do this stuff. But at a certain point, hopefully you can find some satisfaction with your curiosity, so you can, focus on your purposes as well. Because curiosity can never end.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that you brought up that I kind of wanted to segue into is, how can we overcome the stigmatism? How can we help encourage a true Great Awakening, not just here locally and in America and around the world? Because I've said on this podcast and my other podcasts many times, I've been all around the world, most of the continents, and we're most of the people, whether you're from here, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, South America, most people are the same. They just want to take care of their family and make it to tomorrow with a couple extra bucks in their pocket. And it's the people in charge who are, instigating wars and have had Christians fighting Christians and Christians fighting Muslims and really just making us miserable for years. And what can we do to make us maybe, how should I say this, not be so shy to speak the truth, right? I'm not going to go on Facebook with my family and everybody and just start posting, David Weiss videos, right? But how can we get to the point where we can do that and not even think twice about it?
Gosh, it's a great question. It's a great question, something that I've been pondering on for years as well. And I go back and forth of, wanting to be the the revolutionary and say, be bold and, tell people. I have a lot of friends. So I don't have a lot of friends because I like to be really selective, and I kind of only want to mix people in a similar life stage. Like all my single friends that didn't get married and now they don't have kids and they're still not married, I can't hang out with them anymore. I'm a father. I'm a husband. So I need to make friends with other people who have kids in a similar age, and we have a few that have latched onto us that some of them are in the conspiracy world and they're always talking this and that, everything but flat earth. And man, I get repulsed by it. I'm like, oh God, you're just think you know everything, yet you can't even talk about this. Like I've been holding my tongue and I'm ashamed of myself because I don't have anything to lose. If the relationship doesn't work, that's great. It wasn't meant to be anyway. So I've told my wife last night actually, because he called me and I was like, oh, I got to talk to him about flat earth just because I'm tired of listening to all his lectures about everything else. So in one hand, you can say, just be bold, have conviction in yourself, do your research to where you're confident in your soul and be like, this is what I believe. You don't have to believe it, but if not, man, we're on different frequencies. We're not supposed to be best friends, so don't worry about it. On the other hand, and this is where I am coming from more long term, dude, I don't know if we get to. I don't know if this knowledge is supposed to be out for us. It seems like every little bit of this design, and this is a very well crafted design system with Hollywood and NASA and every screen in front of you has an agenda to keep you from this. I don't know if we can win it, George. I think that it's some fluke that we have been, conscious enough to stumble upon the acceptance of this knowledge, which is deeply, deeply esoteric knowledge. It's not even in secret teachings. There's a ton of things that allude to it, but Manly P. Hall himself even says that even though there's tons of value in the Ptolemaic, whatever it is, the geocentric version of astronomy, he said there's so much value in there, and anyone who disregards that is going to miss all the philosophical keys. But science has changed it and says that, it is actually heliocentric. Like, that's kind of a gist of what he says. And I was so mad when I read that in the book, several hundred pages in, because I'm looking for it. But even him, I don't know if it's something that is going to get out there, because as soon as it got out there, man, they came in strong. However, it's still being talked about. It's like, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I just want to make money and provide for my family and not be the forefront of one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse coming to preach flat Earth. But for sure, it's geocentric. It's flat and stationary. The elites know it, but they are doing everything possible to make sure that it doesn't get out as public common knowledge, which is because they need us to be degenerates. I don't know if it's they're siphoning our spiritual energy or whatever they're talking about in the energy extraction matrix kind of stuff. But I think they are.
Pornography has a lot to do with that as well.
A huge, yeah. That's the big one of all of it, and that really sets up everything else to live that degenerate way. And I think that's the point. I think that there's a reason we're taught that at age 4 or 5 years old in kindergarten, etc. Like, I think that this whole realm is designed to be a spiritual test for us. And yes, we kind of decoded it in a way, foundationally speaking, but it's still up to us to live a pure life, and it's not easy. So we are set apart just from our knowledge, because that's what we all prayed for. We asked for it, and if you ask, you shall receive. We came in with the right intentions, and God allowed us to witness the truth of the world. But I don't know if we get to go change anyone else's free will. So much free will. God, free will has to do with a lot of things, doesn't it? And Masonry too. I don't know. I don't know if we get to just advertise it. To try to wrap up.
It is interesting because you made a point earlier. For a while there, YouTube was the wild, wild west, and you would get recommended things that you were actually interested in. We'll watch like a David Weiss video, and the next video would be like MSNBC, some show from MSNBC, and just like, really?
So weird.
And now I can't even post anything. I haven't posted anything in a year and a half because as soon as I do, it's taken down.
Right.
So, and the UN Secretary General said Monday that they are looking to restrict the internet even more. Again, if you go against the narrative, then you're an extremist, and they want control of the internet, the websites. Right. So it may come to the point where, when we're all deplatformed, if we really make change, we'll have to go old school again, like those behind us, and just start going from city to city and renting hotel ballrooms and having truther conferences again. If you ever want to get the word out,
man, that would be awesome. That would be so cool.
Yeah.
To naturally line that up, and it would have a filtration process to weed out the wrong people and attract the right people. I would be super into that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, these are all the things.
But being on a billboard, I don't know if that's a good idea.
Oh, yeah, probably not in this day and age. But
there was a Flat Earth Conference billboard in Denver a couple of years back.
Really?
I took a picture of it. Yeah, because it was hosted. There's the Flat Earth Conference every year.
Yeah.
And a few years back, it was in Denver. Bob Nodell put it on, and I definitely saw that billboard a few times, and it was brought up in my business and work, and I always kept my mouth shut. But it made me really happy to see that, because it's just a reminder that we're not crazy, and we misery loves company, and we definitely need reminders and reflections in that way. I don't know. Yeah, it's a complex topic, but man, it's sure fun talking about.
It is. And one of the things that was very interesting to me was when Barack Obama made that remark about the Flat Earth Society. He didn't say flat earthers. He didn't say flat Earth. He poignantly said Flat Earth Society. And I don't know if you know, but that is controlled opposition. They're the one when you go to the website, it's a disk that's floating up 8 miles per hour, which accounts for the gravity.
Stupid.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about gravity. It's funny how we don't even need to talk about that. That's
density and buoyancy is basically all it is.
It's so simple. It's funny. And then you talk about Neil deGrasse Tyson. What is gravity? He's like, I don't know. It's in an Einsteinian way, it's the curvature of space-time. And I love every example that you see of the Earth, right? You see the Earth in their picture, and you just type in the word space-time, and you'll have a flat grid giving you perspective of the Earth, and you're like, oh, so the Earth isn't flat. You're like, I know, space-time is. Space-time is flat. It's such a joke.
It truly is. This has been just an absolute banger of a conversation. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on?
No, you didn't even ask me about Freemason stuff, but that's okay, because I guess it doesn't have to be relevant. I will tell you that I am I'm diving in. I'm diving in deep. I'm scheduled to be a 32nd degree by the end of the year.
Oh, you're that high up, huh?
Well, I'm a 3rd degree. I'm a Master Mason now.
Okay.
But once you get on this, I've already been through the filtration processes for 2 years now. So yes, in May I'll begin to 4th and beyond, and those go pretty quickly. Honestly, once you're involved in it, it moves pretty quick. Now that I'm past the first 3, which take longer.
Well,
but
let me ask you this: what if you came upon some information? I don't know the full, I've read Manly P. Hall's, and I understand Freemasonry. I know there's a lot of people who are Freemasons very high up who have done some pretty terrible things in this world.
Probably.
So you speak on the Freemasons for me.
Yeah. So, like you said, a lot of people doing horrible things might have ties back to it, and a lot of the astronauts, maybe all the astronauts, had
Yes,
ties
for
back
sure.
to it. Several past presidents. I can't say that Freemasonry is doing anything about that. I will absolutely say Freemasonry serves as a filtration process to get to these higher levels. So I'm very low level in that aspect, But to say that, these three guys did this thing that changed the world and killed a bunch of people, therefore Freemasonry is satanic and that's bad, that's a huge stretch in the wrong direction, and you're actually missing a lot of really good value of symbolism and history. It's not satanic organization. You have to believe in a deity, and I believe in God, and it's the eye, the all-seeing eye, that's a huge, part or symbol in Freemasonry, is just a reminder that God is always watching you. You cannot escape your guardian angel or any demons or any of that. Like, there's, like, for example, the pornography thing that we've brought up, that's a bad idea. All
Right.
that's being recorded in a way. I forget who talks about it. Maybe Mark Sargent is like, what you might run a red light. That's a bad idea to run a red light, but what if there's a red light camera? That changes you. When you have a deep understanding that I am being recorded, that changes your integrity to do the right thing no matter what. So that's what Freemasonry is to me. It's a good reflection and camaraderie with a bunch of older dudes, a couple young guys, but mostly older dudes that are successful in various ways. That you just reflect on and benefit from. So I'm happy to be a part of it. I will tell you that I've heard of a lot of satanic Freemasonries out of California. I don't know any. I'm curious, though. I would love to have a conversation with one because I'm just ballsy like that. What else can I tell you? The only Freemason flat earther that I know is Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal has definitely come out of the closet a few times and had to regress on some public talk shows.
Yeah, I saw he was on the Jimmy Kimmel show. I think he regressed a little bit there, right?
saying he joked about it.
Right.
Yeah, but no, I've heard him on a couple of podcasts. He believes this, and he's right. We know, but he's the only Mason that I know that has mentioned that. There's a lot of symbolism and things that I'm picking up on, though, that allude to it, but it's breadcrumbs.
Gotcha.
So I'm trying to get as high as I can to seek knowledge. I'm seeking the light. I'm just doing life, and I want to do the best I can. And you can't hide from anything if you do that.
That's right. Live by your moral compass, and you'll be just fine.
With morality being the key word there, man. I can't tell you how confused I was years back, taking drugs like LSD, thinking I was spiritual, going to like festivals and things like that. When spiritual, like the more pure you are, the more pure your thinking is. Your brain purifies, your body purifies, and you become a different person. Spirituality is purity in my mind. That with my children and all this, like this is where I currently am, of trying to really focus and dive into that, because I think that is everything.
Yeah, you look at the Joe Rogans and the Aaron Rodgers, and they talk about all these experiences with mushrooms and
DMT. Yeah, they're pushing it.
Yeah, DMT. That's it. And
yep, I've done all that.
I think you're spot on to a pure mind, and I'm not telling anybody how to live their life. I'm just saying I think you're spot on when you mentioned a pure mind is going to give you the most clarity. You don't need another substance to.
Right. And unfortunately, I was the kind of person that has to find out yourself, as I'm a Mason and all the things. Like, I'm going to dive in and I'm going to do it. I need my own experience.
And that's
with it,
okay.
Which is why I tried all the things. Well, trying drugs and stuff, it's like arguable, maybe not okay. But it gave me the satisfaction I need to not want to do it anymore. And Alan Watts specifically says, once you get the message, hang up the phone. Like, because it is a trap and it will suck you in and it'll change your whole life. But just to have like an awareness of it, all I got out of it, George, was I'm a spirit within a body. For sure, no questions asked. I'm not, I am definitely imprisoned in this cell of my cells. You know what I mean? So that's the whole gist of all the psychedelics I ever took, and that's all you need. If you just understand that without doing it, man, you could save 10 years. Like, just get on with it. Just know God's real. You're a spirit within a body. Everything matters.
Absolutely. But going back to what you said earlier, all the experiences and maybe all the mistakes we've made early in our life gives us that's why we have the wisdom we have today, because we didn't listen to other people. We said, hey, we're going to experiment, but we're going to do this. I'm not saying, hey, everybody go experiment, but all the mistakes I've made in my life, I've learned from them. And that's one of the reasons I think I have a little bit of wisdom, is because of, oh man, I did this. This was probably not the brightest thing to do. I'm not going to do that again.
So I know we're about to wrap up, and I just thought of one more
Yeah,
thing.
sure, go
I
ahead.
think you brought up the Monsters or the Monster Energy drinks, and
Yes.
the all the like the hidden satanic like
666.
the 666 everywhere, 666 in Disney. Someone recently brought up Nickelodeon to me. I watched Nickelodeon all growing up, but if you take off the N, Nickelodeon, so Nickelodio, and you type that into a Google Translate from Latin to English, Nick, N-I-C space, I don't want to write it out, but anyway, it's some spaces in there. But it's exactly it. Nickelodio means I don't care about God. I blew my mind. I'll probably just have to screenshot it to you, but yeah, that means I don't care about God. And I think that there's so many of these things, like you bring up numerology or gematria a few times. There's so many hidden messages right before your eyes, hidden in plain sight, like the UN flag, like all sorts of stuff like that.
Absolutely.
That I think there's an agreement. I think because everything comes down to this being a realm for spiritual warfare, a test of integrity. And I personally believe through my research that the agreement is Satan, and again, just using archetypes for a framework of understanding, Satan can do whatever he wants as long as he tells you about it. If he puts it in front of you, it's your fault that you fell in the trap.
That's right.
You know, God gave Satan that ability to do that. And that, man, when you have that perspective and you just look, I have young daughters, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. We watch Disney movies, but man, we are eliminating more and more movies of what we're allowed to watch. I will say Pinocchio is the greatest movie of all time. We watched the 1940 Pinocchio the other day. Oh my gosh, man. Did you watch that with your kids? Like,
Of
that
course.
movie,
Yeah.
it is so good. So, like, I think everything Disney pre-1958, when all the Antarctic Treaty and NASA started, and he got with Stanley Kubrick and faked everything and did that kind of stuff, I think it was a pretty good intentioned, wholesome show, because I loved watching Pinocchio. I think I'm going to make my children watch that once a month, because all it taught was morality, and if you go to Pleasure Island, you become a jackass. Like, that's good stuff.
Yeah, and there's even, of course, in the late 50s, Wernher von Braun and Walt Disney got together and they did the whole Man in Space series.
And you did really good. I want to commend you. You did really good bringing up the Von brothers. I didn't know anything about his brother, and I found that episode fascinating. I'm super familiar with Wernher von Braun, his epitaph on his grave and that sort of thing. Fascinating. All fascinating stuff. It's all right in your face. Just can't let Satan fool you. Not today, Satan.
Not today, Satan. Absolutely.
Anyway, anything else you wanted to touch on? I think I don't want to waste too much more of your time. It's probably an hour.
You haven't wasted it any time. This is my favorite part of doing the podcast. Is just to speaking to different people and hearing their background, how they came to find the truth, and what they think. I get emails all the time. Why didn't you stop him and say this? I will never tell anybody how to think. I'll say my opinions and drive on. I think you sound like you're a young man. You've got your stuff together. You sound like a great father, and
thank you.
You've really. I'm happy to hear that more and more younger people are hip. It took me a little while. I think I knew 9/11 when I was in the military. I saw these things in the technical manuals. And I think I just chose, I wasn't ready for the red pill. And that's when people
Right.
tell me I'm trying to wake my brother up, my cousin up, my aunt. They have to be willing to take the pill.
I think that's a bad idea. Like, as I've tried it a few times, and that's what I'm saying. I think we shouldn't have that attitude of this ego. I need you to understand what I
Yes,
understand.
true.
Like, they will get to that on their own if that's meant for them.
Yep.
You know, like that's an ego trip for us. Is I need you to tell me I'm right, and we need to stop that.
Yep. Because
we are
again,
right.
these are our beliefs.
I wouldn't say I believe this. I think I know this. I think this is an
Yeah.
understanding. I think a lot of belief, like the Satan stuff, there's a lot that goes around it. But when it comes to there is no measurable curvature, like that's an understanding.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah, but everything else is a stretch.
Yeah,
I'll buy that too.
I'm willing to share, but I will never force or say you're wrong unless they're wrong about something, obviously. But I just think that we're all less is more when it comes to the truth.
Right? Yeah. Plant the seeds.
Yep. A little more every
Yeah.
time you see
Please,
somebody.
yeah.
The same way they programmed us. They programmed us when we were little kids. They would put, the planets and the Earth glowing on the ceiling of our room. They
everywhere.
They put the globes in the classrooms. You have to do the same thing to fight back.
Before every movie, yeah, totally. Did you ever see ODD's, ODD TV?
Of course, ODD TV. Yeah,
I met
rapper.
him a few times in person, actually. He's out of
Really?
Denver. Yeah, I enjoyed meeting him. I I don't need to talk about him. I wish him well. I think some weird things happened to him when he was dating that girl.
I was going to say he's kind of fell. I haven't heard anything from him in about a year.
Yeah, I think he's still on the not Substack. What's the other? Not YouTube. It's a different video service I think he's at. Yeah, I think he's still on Rockfin, but
okay.
I don't know. He fell off. I hope he made a bunch of money off his videos and just living a peaceful life. He's pretty rough around the edges in person, just kind of that rapper kind of guy.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I thought he was a really cool, smart dude. I enjoyed spending 2 different times with him at Flat Earth meetups in Denver. But anyway, he did a lot of good research. He made some good content. His Flat Earth, not in plain sight, Flat Earth as seen on TV. Flat Earth as seen on TV. Man, that is so good. And like you're just talking about the subtle globes everywhere, there's also subtle Flat Earth stuff everywhere, all over. Like Simpsons did it so many times. A lot of movies have Flat Earth clocks, like very much in your face. And when you understand MK Ultra and how subtle these programmings are and how your subconscious picks up way more than your conscious mind does, I feel like it's tying into this like hidden in plain sight. God and the devil, they have to tell you about what they're doing, but it's up to you to decipher the truth. I don't know, but I suggest everyone watch that for sure. Flat Earth as seen on TV, it's wild.
Flat Earth as seen on TV, and for all you listening, I just pulled up his YouTube channel. If I can't find the video itself, I'll definitely put at least his channel in there so you guys.
It's under his
check
uploads. If you type in that, it won't even come up. It'll come up with all the what they want you to see stuff.
Yeah.
So you have to go to his channel, go to his uploads, and then scroll through.
Yep, and you'll see the level documentaries, and he's got some good stuff on Pharmakia. He's got a lot of really good work.
Pharmakia was a good one. Yeah, he's got a lot of good ones. I appreciate that dude. I wish him well. I hope he comes back around.
Good. That's awesome. Well, man, it's been a pleasure of a conversation. I hope we can do this again down the road. I'd love to have you back and just to keep us updated.
Wait till I'm a 32nd degree. And
yeah, you can share the knowledge.
Well, I'll share what I can. I'm going to be within my obligations, but I'm happy to share anything Flat Earth related.
But let me ask, so why did you decide I want to be a Freemason? Was it Manly P. Hall's book? How did you find out?
No, I didn't even start reading
Texas who kind of led you in on it? Or?
No, he never led me in. So I was curious about it in middle school. I vividly remember hearing about the forefathers, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin and stuff. And then I didn't think about it for a long time. I see the signs everywhere. I'm like, oh, what's that? I don't know. I'm tired of being ignorant of beautiful symbolism that's lasted a long time as curiosity. And also it was just the constant repetition of every truther blaming the Freemasons for everything. And I'm like, I'm not resonating what they're saying. They're just playing the blame game and having this ego of, I know what's going on there. And you don't know. You've never been to a dinner. You've never been to a lodge meeting. You have no idea. Like, this is a secret society. Like, it's actually the one. It's the original fraternity. And the more I learned about it, so I started going to dinners, and man, that first night was a trip because I was terrified. Am I about to like walk into some like satanic blood sacrifice? Like, I don't know. Do I have to drink some adrenochrome just to get in the door? I don't know. And after dinner, it's small conversations with a bunch of respectful dudes in suits. And then we did a tour, and they just eat it up, man. They are so aware of all the stuff that's being said about them, and I think it serves as another layer of a filtration process to weed out weaker minds. Because it's comical to them. On the tour, there was like 3 or 4 of us that weren't Masons, and we weren't allowed to go in the lodge room, but we're upstairs in the library and seeing all this, like Lafayette, what's his name? Marquis de Lafayette, George Washington's right-hand man. We have one of his Masonic aprons in our lodge. It's just a cool piece of history. I think there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of statues and silver and that kind of stuff in these trophy rooms. And we're touring around it, and then one of the guys comes up and he just says, "See this closet? Don't go in that closet," and just walks away. And then another guy says, "Hey man, under here there might be some bodies," and then they're just making jokes, Gotcha. It's just a bunch of guys doing a boys club. But
right.
It started to appeal to me in a new way, and in an enlightened way. It's enlightenment being the opposite of ignorance. Not saying I have a higher knowledge, but I definitely have gone through those motions and rituals now to where I have an inner knowing. I know what that is, and I also know what it isn't. So it's just the search for knowledge. That's why I did it.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, and to challenge my character, because as soon as you go a couple times, you realize that Freemasonry is a sport of character. It is challenging you in a moral, deep way, in subtle ways that, oh God, I just love it. I really do appreciate it. I can tell you that in order to pass your degree into the next one, you have to become proficient, which is essentially memorizing a 15-minute lecture written in Old English, and it has to be perfect. These are the same words that George Washington and Benjamin Franklin had to memorize, and you can't write it down, you can't print it, you can't do anything. You have a book that's completely a cipher, it's in code, and you have to learn how to read it, and then you have to learn how to memorize it, and then you perform it for your lodge that basically regurgitates everything that happened to you in the ritual of what kind of person you're intending to be, why you're here, who's, God is who holds your trust, and that sort of thing. So it's kind of just powerful. I don't know. I'm into it. I'm gonna keep going.
That's really interesting. And speaking of Denver, isn't Denver the home of the NWO?
According to ODD, yes, maybe. Yeah, the Cheyenne Mountain and all that. It's not necessarily Denver, but Colorado. Yeah, a lot of weird tie-ins here, and a lot of MK Ultra stuff outside of Boulder. The airport alone went like
right?
$2 billion. Yeah, that happened in Aurora. The airport supposedly went $2 billion over budget, so they say that there's some underground cities there, which would make sense because Colorado, man, it's pretty easy to dig basements and things in this kind of soil. So yeah, a lot of questioning, interesting things. But the Freemasons funded that. So I would like to eventually be invited to one of these underground lodge meetings at the airport. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and the artistry. I've been to that airport many, many, many times. The artwork there.
Creepy, man.
Oh my
Creepy.
goodness.
Why? Why would you put this? All these dead babies and crying mothers at the airport. What is that? I don't get it. But it's kind of the in your face, another subtle sign.
So much to talk about.
Yeah. Do you know anybody with the COVID vaccine that's struggling getting pregnant?
So I know people who have taken the vaccine who have gotten sick. One of me and my friend's classmates who we graduated with, he took the vaccine and when did they start? January 2021. So he took it
probably
April or May of 2021, and he died in June, perfectly healthy.
Oh man.
But I've gotten emails, I've gotten stories of I know someone of this. I don't personally know of anyone.
Well,
but
I'm in that stage. I'm in the stage where all my friends and whatnot are having babies. So I know a ton of people that are in that similar life stage, and I know 5 different couples who got it that they all keep having miscarriages.
Oh my
2
God.
out of those 5 have one previous child. So it is not standard birth or birth defects or whatever it's called, fertility issues. It is strictly related to this that I'm saying. They keep getting pregnant, and in the first trimester, like about month 3, they'll have another miscarriage, and it is devastating. Because we're friends with one of them. Our kids play together. They're nice people. Like, we don't agree politically, obviously, but we can still be friendly. So I care about them, and we pray for them all the time because that's just so sad. And I kind of saw it coming with Bill Gates being involved, saying we need to depopulate the earth and all this. We need to lower birth rates. He said all this. Like, this has been documented on TED Talks and more things. And it's funny because every time you see him, he always has the little stack of books next to him. Did you ever zoom in on that?
No, I have not.
Yeah, and just Google it after this conversation. It's funny. A lot of his interviews, on the with news channels or whatever, there's little books that if you zoom in, the very top one says how to lie with statistics. How to lie using statistics. Yeah, you can find that. It's always featured with him, and it's those subtle things that I'm like, man, they are telling you.
Well,
anyway,
that really creepy interview when he was talking about death panels and talking about how they spend X amount of money to keep somebody alive for an extra 2 months when you could take that money and pay a school teacher. But then he goes, "But we can't talk about death panels now, can we?" And he laughs like a maniac when
demented.
When he says these things. Death panels,
creepy.
My
wow.
gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad was in a motorcycle accident. He was a paraplegic from the neck down for a while, so I was very thankful for the medical industry to keep him for a little while longer. But we touched on that a little earlier. It's like I am so grateful for the technology if you need it. If you break an arm or something, you really need it. But just giving birth and things like that, man, come on, people, do it yourself.
Yeah, it's really sad as not all of us, but as society as a whole have trivialized God's work, whether it be through abortions or this gender mutilation they call transgender. Gosh. And they actually use the word healthcare along with these things. It's just
sick care.
It's abhorrent. Yeah.
It is. It is. But good for us for, at least pointing a finger on it and saying, this isn't right. That's all we can do is,
Yep. That's all we can do for now.
For now, exactly. Let's find more things to do, George. I am with you on that. I am ambitious. I don't want to cower away from the opportunity to help awaken, humanity. But at the same time, I can't help but be a little pessimistic of just like, guys, I think that the point of us is that we're not supposed to figure this out. The whole life is a test. It's all a test. So yeah. I don't know.
Yep.
Just going to do my best.
And, but there's something about it. The reason I started doing these podcasts is like, I think God wanted me to have this knowledge. Now, should I just take this knowledge and sit on the sofa and keep just watching videos, or should I take this knowledge? And I've said many times, I'm not a subject matter expert on many things. I know a little bit about everything. And yeah. I try to share my knowledge with everyone to say, hey, look, see, they lied. And hopefully they figure it out. Oh, they are lying about everything, aren't they?
And I think you're doing an excellent job. I hope you didn't take it the wrong way when I said, like, we shouldn't tell anybody. Like, no. Like, you're a lighthouse. Like, we need lighthouses to attract the right people who are ready for it. That we don't need people, like, going to every little NASA page and pumping out all their angry shit and trolling and that kind of thing. Like, that's not a thing. But people like you, thank you for what you're doing. Because just for me, like, you obviously got into this years after I did, but coming across this when Sean sent it to me, it just makes me happy. It makes me happy that it's still, the flame's still burning. People are still getting attracted in, and people are still researching just for truth, because there's nothing better than truth.
That's it. Truth is everything, isn't it?
Truth is everything. Everything matters. How you do anything is how you do everything. Like, all this ties in so much that your foundational worldview matters.
Well,
everything's meant to be. So thank you for your role, George. I think you're awesome, man.
Thank you. Thanks for agreeing to come on and sharing your knowledge. And this has been awesome. And again, I'd love to have you on again. And again, I will put your Instagram link in the show description. So if anybody wants to reach out to Brian, click on his IG link and shout out to him. And I'm sure he'll have a chat with you. I'll also put the link to ODD TV in there so you all can check that out. And do you have any closing words for the audience, sir?
Oh, no, I should have prepared that. That'd have been good. No, I'd love to come back one day, though. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a lot of fun.
You're welcome back anytime, Brian. It's been an amazing interview, and I look forward to doing this again.
Awesome.
And there you go, our interview with great listener Brian from the great state of Colorado. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. The podcast is not over because today we're going to go in reverse. I completely forgot to make the announcements and do the emails. I was on the phone. I was trying to do 3 things at one time. I got a little distracted. So let's take care of that now. Let's do the announcements first. We have some great interviews coming up. As I look on the board over here, this Sunday, I'll be interviewing Josh from the Founded Earth Brothers. His brother may come on and join us, or it may just be Josh. Either way, we'll have that interview, and it should go out sometime Sunday evening. So look for that. Interview with Dustin Nemos on the 15th. And then we have an interview with one of our listeners, another listener interview. Darius will be joining us February 17th. Bart Sabrell, the 22nd of February, which I will drop on this podcast as well. And then February 27th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll have an interview with a listener, Kaysen. So we have a lot of things coming your way. Don't miss it. Let's get to our emails first. Jimmy in Tennessee, so glad I found your podcast. There are plenty of truthers out there, but so much on YouTube and other sites. Spotify is easy for me to listen while I'm working, so I'm glad you're doing this. I've been awake to flat earth and other deceptions for several years. I used to try to convert friends and family, but some people literally cannot see, and they will not even allow it. So he's found peace just researching and listening to others, and I'm very much enjoying your podcast here. Thank you very much, Jimmy. And that's funny, you mentioned that, and that's one of our topics of conversation between myself and Brian. Is it's really up to the individual when they're ready to hear the truth or not. So, you can keep giving them the breadcrumbs, leaving them links to videos and podcasts, but it's really up to them to decide when it's time for them to wake up. So thank you for the email, Jimmy, and appreciate the kind words. The next email comes to us from Wisconsin, and our friend Noah. I've been listening to our podcast for a couple of weeks now. Came into it with an open mind and have been blown away by everything. Crazy to think that we've been lied to about everything for so long. It really proves that we have a creator. Amen to that. My first question is, how do you explain the different moon phases with the flat earth we live on? And that's something really easier described with video, but I want to play this clip, and I will put the link in the show description so you can actually see the video of it. And this does a good job explaining it. And actually, I'll put in 2 or 3 different videos that help explain it. But this is only 4 or 5 minutes. Got some good audio that discusses this very subject.
The moon is the same size and distance as the sun and follows close to the sun's path, the ecliptic. The moon takes about 24 hours and 51 minutes to complete a revolution above us, slower than the sun. The moon is always close to the ecliptic, within 5 degrees above or below. It also comes and goes, just like we saw with the sun. The moon crosses the sun's ecliptic approximately every 2 weeks. These crossings are known as lunar nodes. If it crosses the ecliptic at full moon, we have a lunar eclipse. If it crosses the ecliptic at new moon, we have a solar eclipse. Remember this for later. The moon takes an average of 29 days, 12 hours and 44 minutes to go through one lunar month, one lunar cycle, from new moon through waxing, full, waning, back to new moon. Because of this motion, the moon has a point in time each lunar month when it is closest to the Earth, perigee, and a point in time where it is farthest from the Earth, apogee. The sun moves faster than the moon. The sun catches up with it, creating a new moon, and then speeds ahead of it. More accurately here, we can see the lunar phases are caused by the relative geometry of the moon to the sun in the flat Earth sky. These two luminaries are linked by what one could call pranic, magnetic electro, or chi energy. The first quarter moon is when it is half illuminated and occurs when the sun and moon are 90 degrees apart in the sky. At full moon, the moon is fully powered and fully illuminated when the sun and moon are 180 degrees apart in the sky. The moon self-luminates and self-deluminates. It powers up and powers down. There is evidence to suggest this geometric relationship creates the tides in the oceans too, as salt water is ionized and can react to magnetic electro. Another way of talking about the motion of these luminaries is to say the moon travels 14.5 degrees an hour and the sun 15 degrees an hour. So the moon loses 12 degrees a day on the sun. People are okay that the sun is self-luminating, so people should also be okay that the moon is self-luminating too. A nice way to remember if the moon is waxing or waning is if it is like a letter C or D. A cat goes, waning, and a dog comes, waxing. These phases can be known far into the future due to the sun and moon's constant speeds. This works as a geometric clockwork, a calendar in the sky, so to speak. Chinese, Thai, Hindu, Islam and Hebrew calendars still today are linked to the moon cycles, the lunar month. If one photographs the moon 51 minutes later on successive days, note, due to the moon rising about 51 minutes later each day, over one lunar month it will trace out its own analemma. The moon can be seen above in the sky at the same time in distant places. Depending on where one is on a line of longitude, depends on what degree of rotation the moon will be. To a stationary observer, the moon also appears to rotate as it moves from east to west in the sky. This is only due to perspective. The moon is not actually rotating. it will appear to rotate one way until it is above one's head, and then the other way. Regardless of location, every human on Earth has only ever seen one face of the moon. Therefore it is rational that it appears to many human subconscious and conscious mind as spherical. In a waning phase, the closer the sun gets to the moon, the more power, or self-illumination, the moon loses. And when the sun is very close to the moon, it loses its power. It loses its self-illumination. The moon disappears. Some say we should really see a black silhouette. We don't though. We see nothing, and can pick up nothing with cameras or telescopes. It's just not there. This new moon really could be just that, a brand new moon, and we will layer up on this information later. Then a few days after new moon, at the waxing crescent phase, one can see the slither become illuminated, and the moon starts gaining its power again. Even at other times during the lunar cycle, we can very rarely see something appear to go through the moon, and in this footage it is unknown if this is a star, wandering star, or high altitude drone. At other times, the moon appears as though the blue sky is coming through the moon, but the moon is higher than the layer of blue sky. So is the moon semi-transparent here? Is the moon not totally there in these instances? When the moon is half illuminated, is the other half there or not? Again, the Luminaries Mysterium has not given us a clear and rational answer as yet. We don't know. We have to continue to revel in the mystery. We don't know what the moon is.
How much they get? How much money?
And there you go. And again, I will put this link in the show description. It's entitled The Path of the Moon and Sun Explained Very Well. And I'll put a couple other ones in as well. Always, with this podcast, please take the time and to check the show description. I try to put as much information in there as I can. Now, Noah's, we're not done, his email goes on to say, my other question is, what are your thoughts on President Trump? I have mixed feelings about him. And again, I don't mind touching on other subjects, lately on these podcasts. I think they played it very well. They put Trump against one of the most evil women in the entire world. So it was easy to root for Trump because, my gosh, we couldn't have Hillary in the White House. And something that I don't think I've ever mentioned on this podcast is I have personally met Hillary, and I had to shake her hand in October of 2002. I went home that night, and I think I washed my hand for about 6 hours straight. May have even put some acid wash on it. But yeah, I was stationed at Fort Drum at the time, and President Bush W. in 2002 came by and was hyping up the troops for us to go into Iraq, which we did in March of 2003. And Hillary was part of the entourage. And, of course, I got selected to go over there and to do the handshake thing. And I'm here to tell you guys, you see the videos, you can see the videos on YouTube of children when they got around the Queen of England. They get scared and they ran and they screamed. There's something to being able to sense evil. And I think I got more of a sense of phoniness than evil, but she certainly did have just not a friendliness about her. I'll just leave it at that. But as far as Trump goes, listen, and there's still a lot of people, I try to keep politics out of this podcast, but we'll keep it short and to the point. Number one, he was the godfather of Operation Warp Speed, and he still stands by it to this day, and we know that has rained terror on our youth. Just today again, I saw a 31-year-old former Georgia Bulldog tennis player, Lily Kimball, died at the age of 31 from sudden cardiac arrest. Perfect health, perfect shape. They're trying to normalize the death of young people. Oh, yeah, it's happened all the time. No, it hasn't. It sure has not. And then, of course, two big red lights for me was his association with Wilbur Ross, someone who was a lifetime Democrat from the late 50s until 2017, when Trump nominated him Secretary of Commerce, who, by the way, replaced one of the Pritzkers. And if you don't know the Pritzker family, then you need to go to my other podcast and check them out. They're a family that runs the filth that is coming out of Chicago. But this one clip, which is 1 minute and 22 seconds, should say all you need to know. And to me, the Second Amendment is very important, because you look at other countries that had their guns taken away from them and how much more tyranny they had to deal with over the last couple years. Listen to what Trump says about this.
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
Well, in the category, you've spoken about it, Mr. President, gun violence restraining orders, they're called. California actually has a version of this. And I think in your meeting with governors earlier this week, individually and as a group, we spoke about states taking steps. But the focus is to literally give families and give local law enforcement additional tools if an individual is reported to be a potential danger to themselves or others. Allow due process so that no one's rights are trampled, but the ability to go to court, obtain an order, and then collect not only the firearms, but any weapons.
So there's the vice president that all the Trump fans hate, speaking completely logical to an extent. I still think shall not be infringed, but he makes a point about going to court first. Now, I want you to listen to what Trump says.
In the possession
Or
of that
Mike,
individual.
take the firearms first.
Do you understand what he just said? Take the firearms first. Take the firearms first.
Or
that
Mike,
individual.
take the firearms first and then go to court, because that's another system. Because a lot of times by the time you go to court, it takes so long to go to court to get the due process procedures. I like taking the guns early, like in this crazy man's case that just took place in Florida. He had a lot of firearms. They saw everything. To go to court would have taken a long time. So you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through due process second.
So I'm a flat earther. I'm an extremist. And I was in the Army for 24 years, and I spent 5.5 years in the Middle East. I must have PTSD. So can they just say, oh, this guy must have PTSD, he can't have his guns, so they can come down and take all my guns away? Once you start opening these cans of worms that we've seen over the last 20 years get open, there's no putting them back. And you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. And that should shock each and every one of you who are still on the Trump train. With all that being said, I'm at the point now, I'm not in politics anymore. I am not a registered conservative or Republican or Democrat. In 2016, I voted for the guy because of, Hillary. But listen, going to vote isn't going to change anything. We are so, the filth is running so amok. Elections aren't going to fix this mess. It's just not. It sure is not. Now, one other thing that I should mention. Remember, for a while there, Ivanka was dating Nat Rothschild. Of course, the Rothschilds, many people believe, control much of what's going on here on our flat plane. And remember, Nat was one of the richest ones, dated Ivanka. And it's in the conspiracy world, it's known that Trump Resorts International's casino was a CIA front that was originally founded by Rockefeller. All these people, whether it's Trump or Elon, these people are put in positions. And by the way, Elon and Trump went to the same school. Go check out the Wharton School of Pennsylvania, University of Pennsylvania. So again, company founded by Rockefeller and Baron Rothschild. And again, it's Wilbur Ross. Again, go look up Wilbur Ross, and you'll see he was a Democrat from the late 50s until 2017. And then he woke up at the age of, 70, whatever, and was like, I feel conservative. And Trump nominated to the Secretary of Commerce. And it was Wilbur Ross who worked for Rothschild Incorporated, which saved Trump in the 80s when the casinos were failing. So, listen, I'm not into politicians. The left wing and the right wing, same corrupt bird. So that's where I stand. Great questions, great email. Thank you so much, Noah. Goes on to say that he had mixed feelings about him. He just wanted my opinion. And a lot of people are, even folks who used to support him, I think a lot of people, especially with Operation Warp Speed, are starting to realize maybe he is not the person he pretends to be. But Noah says, anyways, really enjoy your podcasts and the accuracy of it with scripture. Love listening to your podcast with my headphones on while working as an electrician. Keep spreading the truth, brother. Well, be safe, Noah. Thank you for the email. Keep in touch, and God bless you, brother. We appreciate you. So our last email comes from Wolfgang, and he says, listening to episode 18 of our podcast, you mentioned the polls, and it reminded me of an episode of Star Talk Radio. And again, I'll put this link in the show description as well. And this episode is entitled Things You Thought You Knew, the Big Bang Dilemma. And he goes on to say, you skip to about the 16.5-minute mark. You hear Neil deGrasse Tyson saying, your compass actually points south. And I'll play this for about 30 seconds, and you can kind of hear what he's saying. I think this is what Wolfgang is talking about.
So let me just make it clear that Earth's rotation axis with Santa Claus at the top is not flipping. That is a completely stable configuration. We bob up and down a little bit, okay? Mm-hmm. On our spinning axis, we not only precess, which is a fancy word for wobble. Okay, we wobble. If you ever played with a top, if the top slows down, you see it wobble. But also we bob up and down, okay? And they all happen on very different time scales, but none of them involve a flipping of Earth's axis, north and south. However, what does flip are the magnetic poles. The magnetic poles. Now, let me just nip something in the bud here, okay, just so you know. You're old enough to have probably used a compass in your life when you were a kid, all right? Yeah. Okay. Which way does the compass always point?
North is what they say.
Okay. So that's correct. And it points to the North Magnetic Pole. All right.
Right.
Which, by the way, does not exactly align with Santa Claus. All right.
Okay.
There's things in the universe where
there's a couple different norths. There's true north, magnetic north, and then what is the other one? I'm going to fail my board question. But anyway, he goes on. You kind of get the gist of what he's saying. Then Wolfgang says later, around the 37.5-minute mark, he claims that nothing will change about the Big Bang because that's not how science works. So interesting stuff. I'll put this, if you want to listen to this podcast, I think it's about 42 minutes long. If you want to hear some interesting stuff from Neil deGrasse Tyson and what the Globers still believe, we'll put that in there. But thanks for pointing that out, Wolfgang. Really good stuff there. And again, I'll put this link in there as well. Appreciate all the emails. And if you'd like to send in an email, your thoughts on any of the podcasts, the conversation we had with Brian today, or if you would like to come on and join us and talk about your journey to the truth and your experience in the flat earth realm, and if you've had any luck sharing the flat earth with others. And again, one of our listeners will be coming on towards the end of the month, discussing how he's had success talking to others about flat earth. So I guess that'll put a wrap on today's episode. I appreciate each and every one of your emails. We have a really great community. Every single email has been nothing but kind and ponderous. Actually, I missed one thing. I did have one more, and it's from MG. He always likes to play devil's advocate, which is good. It makes great banter. Goes on to say, I enjoyed your insight about sun sensitivity in humans in relation to distance. And I was talking about how if the sun is really 12 kajillion miles away, a couple thousand feet in elevation shouldn't make a difference. Whereas you go to Colorado Springs or Ecuador, Chile, you can get sunburned much faster than normal, which tells me the sun is local, like we as flat earthers believe. So he says, you notice the fact that a mere 1,000 feet in elevation can change the intensification, the power of the sun to a level that can cause damage to skin. Yet the sun is 100 million miles away. How could such a minuscule move towards the sun cause such huge effects when it's so far away? he goes on to say, a mainstream rebuttal may read like this. It's not that the sun's distance to Earth just happens to be in the precise position for humans to exist. Rather, it's that life evolved in this particular spot and we exist in the narrow constraints particular to that environment in which life has adapted to survive for billions of years. The frame of reference to view the sun sensitivity notion is to marvel at how vast the universe is, the time frame in which life has been evolving, and aware of how fragile our position is. MG likes to play devil's advocate, so there you go. But I think that is a good ammunition to have in your, or a good tool to have in your toolbox, I should say, when trying to present the flat Earth. The sun is local. It's not 93 million. Look at it. It's right there. It's right there. And the sun is its own moonlight. It receives its charge from the sun, and that you can yourself go get your thermometer, put it in the moonlight, and then put it outside the moonlight. There's all kinds of scientific experiments we can do on our own. So that's a wrap. Appreciate everybody. Hope you guys have a great week. Don't forget, I have another interview coming this Sunday with Josh from the Founded Earth Brothers. It'll be a great one. Don't miss it. Take care. Hit me up. theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. God bless. Have a tremendous week. We'll talk to you really soon. Take care.
You're listening to the Fact Hunter Radio Network.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Hey, hon, we really need new phones.
T-Mobile will cover the cost of 4 amazing new iPhone 15s, and each line is only $25 a month.
New iPhone 15s? Best new year ever.
Get 4 iPhone 15s on us with eligible trade-in when you switch to T-Mobile.
Minimum of 4 lines for $25 per line per month with autopay discount using debit or bank account. $5 more per line without autopay, plus taxes and fees. Phone fee at 24 monthly bill credits for well-qualified customers. Contact us before canceling account to continue bill credits or credit stop and balance on required finance agreement due. $35 per line connection charge applies. See T-Mobile.com.
Hey, hon, we really need new phones.
T-Mobile will cover the cost of 4 amazing new iPhone 15s, and each line is only $25 a month.
New iPhone 15s? Best new year ever.
Get 4 iPhone 15s on us with eligible trade-in when you switch to T-Mobile.
Minimum of 4 lines for $25 per line per month with autopay discount using debit or bank account. $5 more per line without autopay, plus taxes and fees. Phone fee at 24 monthly bill credits for well-qualified customers. Contact us before canceling account to continue bill credits or credit stop and balance on required finance agreement due. $35 per line connection charge applies. See T-Mobile.com.